Ladies and gentlemen, Big Herald News.
Hey, kia ora koutou, it's whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chewy.
Kia ora, Pat. This just in, butt soup.
Butt soup? Sweetie?
Butt
What?
soup.
Butt soup.
That's
Butt soup what?
butt soup.
Okay.
More later. I don't know.
Okay. How you doing, man? How's your weekend?
Not too bad. Good weekend. Good weekend. Obviously, you and I were at the Green Party thing down here on Friday night.
Yep.
And we got to see Chloe Schwarbrick zigzagging her way through the crowd to come and give us hugs.
Oh,
We got
Hey.
Chloe hugs, fam.
it was Hug a Leader Day, obviously. And then she walked away and you went, I should have got a photo. Like, oh, you'll be
I
right,
should
mate.
have got a
next
photo,
time.
but
Next time.
I'm a rookie. I'm a rookie
always-
who doesn't know what he's doing.
I always feel a bit strange at those events if you're going along to watch because that's Chloe's job. She's at work. You know, I never kind of go in thinking, oh, I want to go and bail them up and say good day because she's at work. Chloe doesn't need to talk to me. Like, I'm on board. We know what we're talking about. She needs to talk to all the other people in the room. But yeah, it was lovely that she
Pat's
came across.
only
and-
speaking for himself there. Yeah, Chloe does need to speak to me.
Okay, fair enough.
I exist to be spoken to by Chloe Schwarbrick.
I tell you something, though, something I noticed. Young people, lots of grey hair, not much in between. Was an interesting observation of the audience.
Yeah, I noted that as well. Yeah.
It's one of those things that I think on the left, and I think Bomber has identified this a few times when he's been talking to us. On the left, we have a dearth of sort of maybe bottom end Gen X, top end millennial males in particular. Although that might be changing because it's following the trend of America, that might be changing, but there seems to be that gap. And I just eyeballed it and I went, this is interesting because this room kind of is echoing that. There were, like, we probably had 8 or 10 people come up to us and say hello. I think most all of them, let's say at least half of them, 2/3 of them, grey hair, which is great, right? Fantastic. But interesting looking at those who were sitting there on a coolish Friday night, taking time out of their evening to listen to the Greens. Young people and grey-haired people. The in-betweens were missing.
Hadron Collider has just written out the thought that I was having. Like, does that match engagement?
It's pronounced
Yeah.
hard on Collider. You forgot. Yeah.
I you just rattled me with that.
Sorry.
Like, this ties in with what David Seymour was saying with the changes around voting, right? He's making the implication that young people that can't get their shit together don't deserve to vote. But what we are seeing, what is borne out by the stats on who actually votes and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
says that it is the young and politically activated that give a shit about stuff.
Yeah.
They're going to be there. And then the older crowd who give a shit about their kids and grandkids are going to be there. Or in the case of the green event that we went to, and a Free Palestine thing I went to on Saturday, that same demographic was reflected. And what I heard in the crowd, right, one of the people that was talking to the room at the Free Palestine thing was talking about the anti-apartheid, the anti-Tour protesters from back in the day.
81.
And someone shouted out, corrected him because he said, oh, late 70s. He goes, 81, because some of us were there. And so I just find that really interesting, that those people that were engaged and gave a shit back then have carried that on throughout their life.
Could it also be as simple as, and I see it in the chat, but I was thinking it as well, so I'm not going to give you credit, is that, you are the busiest in life you ever are. If you're going to be a parent of young kids and stuff, it sort of starts maybe late 20s into 30 in general, not everyone, but in general, and sort of ends, late 40s into 50. I wonder if there's like life and busyness and, when you haven't got time to do anything, if it's one of the things that falls off the list. Wonder if it could be as simple as that.
And I'm thinking of my own experience here as well. Like, I've always been politically activated, shall we say, and have always been left-leaning. I've always voted, but I have only become a member of a political party in the last year. I have only made submissions on bills in the last 2 years. I've only gone to political events like the Green Party one we went to, like mayoral debates, in the last 3 years. So that kind of speaks to that, doesn't it?
I like it how you say left-leaning. I close my eyes and I visualize you left-leaning, and what I see is someone lying down. So don't know if that's as far as...
I'm all the way over here, reclined,
lying flat
just
on
chilling.
the ground.
Just chilling.
Yeah.
So I think especially when people are discussing whether young people deserve to vote, or not, I think that's really interesting. Maybe the conversation should be, maybe the people in the middle need to get their fucking game faces on and get involved. If that's actually the disconnected demographic,
I wonder if it's always been that way.
Vote.
I wonder if it's the ones that have all, the busy family ones. Like if you looked in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, I wonder if it's the busy parents of young kids who were the gap at any stage. It feels like that, mind you, no. Okay, let's go back. Think back to the 70s and stuff. In Vietnam, it was young people who were activated. 80s, young people in nuclear war. Yeah, so maybe the young people have always been. I was going to say, feels like young people being active is a fairly new thing. But as I go back to at least the 60s, I'm like, no, that doesn't feel right. The war in Iraq, George W. Bush, there's always been a young people movement all the way through to get politically active, at least back that far as well. Maybe around the end of World War II wasn't so much because it was the young people who were going over there and fighting. But yeah, certainly since the 50s, 60s, it feels like there's always been that young movement, the young political movement. So yeah, I don't know.
Right. So we're all in agreement then. David Seymour can cram it.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway there.
Let's have a look at a few things. Lots of stuff happening in the show tonight, but as often happens on a Monday night, there's a few shorties to show you about what's going on. Hello, Whānau. Lovely that you're all with us. I probably need to actually share the screen, don't I? So I'll just go back and share the screen before I do that, so I know what I'm doing. What am I doing with that one? Smooth. No one saw. It's all a hidden thing. But yeah, lots going on tonight, Whānau. In fact, a bit of an exclusive tonight. Involving me speaking to the media spokespeople from the electoral office today. So I've got some information for you that no one else has really covered off yet. And it's about the idea to make it harder to vote. And it's straight from the electoral office that I got today. No one saw that, eh? I actually don't think this is that big a deal, but it's a bit of fun, Mr. Luxon not being liked at the netball, a little bit there. Oh, not going to say hello. Luxon brushed it off today. Every politician gets booed. It's very Trumpian, isn't it? Trump going to an NFL game.
Every politician was booed.
Yeah. Well,
we are honoured to be joined on court by Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, Astrid Burgess, ANZ Chief Marketing Officer, and Jenny Wiley, Netball New Zealand Chief Executive.
Luxon was on Mike Hosking tonight, and they spent the first 2 minutes talking about him wearing a sweater under the jacket. Honestly, I watched the whole interview and there was literally nothing that they said that I wanted to talk about. Hoskins actually went, we're not going to talk about butter. We're not going to talk about butter. It won't come up once today. And I'm like, so the one thing that's the biggest news story in New Zealand at the moment, it's not butter. Butter's the incarnation of the cost of living. It's the cost of living situation you're not going to talk about. Got it. Went all the way through, even took notes and went, oh my God, this is as boring as whale shit. Not going to use any of this stuff. Yep, there you go.
But here's the country wants to know, is it acceptable to wear a sweater under a jacket? Oh, fuck off.
Lloyd Lloyd Burr, that's right, isn't it? Lloyd Burr had an interesting conversation with the Archangel of Death today, where he was trying to understand why she was holding a press conference. Why are we here? Why are we here? I won't play it all for you because it goes on for 2.5 minutes, but I'll play you the first couple of questions.
What changes are you planning to make in the scaffolding area?
Well, we don't know yet, and that's the exciting part about this.
What exactly are you announcing today? Are you announcing that you're going to look into something?
We're announcing that we are consulting with the sector.
Yeah.
And look, this might sound like a small thing for you, but I know it's really big because even 2 weeks ago, I spoke at a trade show for the National Safety Show. We had tradespeople there in front of us. I had 3 questions from tradespeople, and they said, what are you doing about the pre-qualifications?
I get all of that, but what's the point of today? Is it signalling to
New
Zealand that
why
you're
am I
looking at
here,
it?
Brooke?
Why don't you go away and do the mahi and then have something to announce?
Well, because people are really excited about this stuff.
Yeah, they're not. Sorry. And it goes on. It goes on. So I thought that was very good by Lloyd. What are we here for? What are you announcing? I'm announcing we're looking into the situation. This government's done that several times, that they've gone, we'll have a press conference, and what's it about? It's about what we're going to do next. Okay? So when will we know? Well, that's coming. They seem to have done this a few times, but Lloyd, I think it's great that you stick the oar in when you need to. Like, it was ridiculous. What are you saying? But it was probably a pre-setup, and they had to do something rather than cancel it and lose face. So they did nothing. About the scaffolding law, I'm quite interested in that. Because I know a lot of people who have done alterations to their houses or painting their houses or that kind of stuff, when they didn't really need to spend an extra $5,000 on scaffolding, they could have had like a rolling scaffold or something that was safe enough, but not the whole thing. So I'm quite interested in the law and what they're going to do. I'm distrustful that they're going to pull all the safety out of it. Oh, what we actually want you to do is, by law now, you don't need a scaffolding and you need to have pins in front of your eyes when you're up there. That's that's the trade-off we've done. Some of the scaffolding feels like it does go too long. As I said, I know you can get very safe, very secure, very solid scaffold rigs that are on wheels that can move. And I know people who have had to completely wrap their house rather than just getting one of those and moving it as they've done it, sort of thing. So it'd be interesting to see what comes of that. Yeah, so there you go, Chewy. An announcement of an announcement.
I'll tell you because I'm getting my roof replaced next month, so I have to do scaffolding, so that's fine. Look, Lloyd Burr was just an inch away from going, Brooke, this could have been a fucking email. Like, honestly, why would you assemble press for that rather than just emailing out something, hey, look, this is the next piece of work we're working on. We're looking at scaffolding. Some people have said that it's too much. You know, it's just, but any time that the government looks dumb in front of the media, I'm here for it.
There's one other piece. It's not really news. In fact, it was, who broke it this morning? Someone broke it this morning. Maybe it was Farrier broke it this morning about our mate Karen. Part of me goes, it's not really news. And I'm not going to jump up and down and celebrate about it because the Wright family have withdrawn their financial support for the platform.
Have they though?
This is the thing. What does that mean? I mean, I'm just not, they're still here. They're still doing stuff. They've still got advertisers. They probably take a lot of money in from their subscribers and stuff. So I'm not dancing on anyone's grave. It'd be a fun one to dance on, but I'm not. But yeah, you're right, Chewy. So officially they're not supporting them anymore, but what about personally or privately or whatever? And
yeah,
it's
he's still,
and it's been gone since March.
Shareholder.
It's been gone since March. So
he's still a major shareholder. He still owns 75% of the company. So there's that. I think Stuff did an absolute shit job at this, of just taking this guy at his word. And
they can't do much else. What else can they do?
David Farrier ran with this story as well
this morning.
I thought it was a bit odd, but I don't know. You check the company's register would be a start. And I was like, okay, so this guy says he's not involved anymore, but he's still a major shareholder. So
There's another. There's another.
let's look at some other sketchy stuff that the Wright Family Foundation have done. Do you remember all of that story about how they were donating this big business to charity, and the charity that they were donating it to was the Wright Family Foundation?
Was theirs, yeah.
So they're quite happy to do some sneaky, don't look over here, shuffle the cards bullshit.
Yeah.
Which I think is exactly what's happening here.
Yeah. There's another story about Karen, which to be honest, I don't really know if I even want to publicise it. Have you? Maybe I'll just tell you. I've got to tell you to publicise it, I guess. Have you heard what he tweeted over the weekend to do with Gaza? It's like it's like the worst tweet from one of the worst people who's ever existed in this world. I guess I'll share it because we might as well. I'm talking about it. There's a part of me which is what?
I don't know if it's the worst one, but we'll compare it. We'll see.
I'm really concerned about the mass outbreak of anorexia in Gaza.
This definitely takes the lead for one of the worst from a New Zealander, that's for sure.
Well, I'm talking about from him. I'm just talking about from him.
Oh, right, yeah. Well,
no, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, it's his worst.
To which I pointed out, if you don't understand why this is one of the more disgusting things from years of disgusting things from this piece of human excrement, all you need to do is replace Gaza with the word Auschwitz. That's all you need to do, because open air prison, you know? So, yeah. And look, to be honest, once I saw that, and then because I saw that some of his other things from his feed came across my socials this weekend. Do you remember when the platform started up and they went far right, and then they went with the Wright Family Foundation and they came back? And I remember saying very clearly, they will either have to make a decision at one stage whether they stay the path to maybe where he more naturally would sit, this is Plunkett, or go back far right, because that's the audience he's culminating. I think if you think about the money from the Wright Family Foundation falling over since March, he's gone pretty hard right since then. And I wonder if this is actually now tailored to the audience he has to activate for it to succeed. Just putting those two things together, wondering if there's a connection, because put it this way, that about children in Gaza, when one of your investors, and let's not talk about whether they're good or bad or ethical or not, but runs the biggest children's ECE group in the country, and you're writing about people in Gaza, including children, having anorexia. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't feel like those things should be aligned unless someone is looking for more clicks, because they have to.
There's also some other comments there where he's trying to point out that all these emaciated children are being handled by well-fed adults, and trying to build a conspiracy theory out of that. So, long story short, too long, did not read. Sean Plunkett is still a dog shit human being.
Yeah.
Like, if I could put him in a different class away from the rest of the human beings, that'd be great. Do you want to see a worse tweet?
I guess so.
Not from him, just in general.
Yep.
So
my 0% unemployment plan. Who is that? Who is he?
He is a California gubernatorial candidate. I don't know what that word means, but it's
going for governor.
Going for governor. Cool. So this guy is basically saying concentration camps are my 0% unemployment plan. This is one of the most horrific things I've ever seen. And this guy needs a smile wiped off his face. As someone that has walked through those gates and been in that place, I cannot comprehend the mindset of this guy to A, take this photo, and B, tweet it out.
Yeah.
What an absolute shit stain. And why is it that these right-wing chuds from wherever you are, whether it's the UK here, Australia, US, the whole thing, they all seem to think this shit is fine. They all seem to have tripped and fallen and crushed their empathy gland and just not only that, can look around and go, yeah, this is a good idea. I'm going to do this.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things. Like, I remember having a conversation with someone about being offended that people were in togas, toga party, and what it represented, and all the people that died in the Roman Empire, and da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, yeah, but 2,000 years gives it some distance to be able to make light of. You know, what is it, 80? 80 does not. I mean, 100 does not. 200 does not. So, yeah, I don't know. I was around the Karen stuff, I was very much toing and froing between do I mention it or not, because I don't really want to give them oxygen. But then again, I guess it's that same conversation we just had about Mehdi Hassan and Jubilee. Would you rather have that person out there calling themselves a fascist Catholic zealot, or would you like them in the shadows? Ironically, I don't know if you've heard about that story, Chewy, how he went on Give, Send, Go and raised all that money. He lost his job in January. So well before that came out. He didn't lose his job because of that. He lost it in January. So he just fooled a whole bunch of people for 40 grand, which is probably why he said, I've just lost my job. There's no one to blame for this, because there was no job, possibly. So there you go. Okay. There's a couple of super chats here. Do we need to get those out? Oh, you've done that one. Don't know what that means, but apparently at the Auckland meetup in that case. Pat was working at the Auckland meetup in that case. Okay. So I know that the young'uns did a little bit of South Park stuff on Friday, but I also kind of had a chat, said, look, let's just be careful with the copyrighted stuff, because we've already got a strike on the channel. We don't want another one. The strike's nothing to do with anything we did wrong. There was actually an image in a thumbnail, which was a hairy back, like it was someone's hairy back, and YouTube saw it as a hairy ass, and that was why we got a strike, which has all been settled, and it's going away in a couple of days. But I thought, we don't really want another strike for copyright. But since then, South Park has put some of their clips up on their YouTube channel. So I think it's probably perfectly okay to use some of their YouTube channel stuff to have a look at what we're talking about. Now, Chewy, you've seen the show. Oh, actually, we'll get to that shortly, because the first thing I wanted to show you was, quite frankly, the dumbest man in world politics. I've got a couple of things to show you. One is the dumbest man in world politics, and the second is his surrogates, who are the dumbest people in world surrogacy. So this is Donald Trump last week. I actually had this on Thursday night, but I forgot to play it, talking about bringing down the price of medication. You ready, Chewy? Here we go.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get the drug prices down, not 30 or 40%, which would be great, not 50 or 60. No, we're going to get them down 1,000%, 600%, 500%, 1,500%, numbers that are not even thought to be achievable because
they're not achievable. So for people who aren't aware, you can't have anything more than 100% reduction. Once you have 100% reduction, you are on zero. So if something costs $100 and you have 100% reduction, it costs zero. Therefore, if something costs $100 and you have 1,000% reduction, the company's paying you $900 to use their product. So Donald Trump wants to take the prices of medication down by 1,500%. So for every dollar you're now going to spend, the company you're purchasing it off will give you $14 back. So that's pretty good, Chewy? That's a nice socialist change, don't you think? I can almost go one step further, though. They were talking about windmills, and you know that Donald Trump has this thing about windmills, right? And windmills are the worst thing in the world, and they shouldn't exist, and they shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And so one of his surrogates jumps on, I think it's Fox News, to agree with him, and you might be surprised as to what he doesn't know about windmills and power. So this is just a few seconds of Trump, then it'll go to his surrogate.
your oceans, stop the windmills.
Is he right? He's 100% right. Look, just so people understand, wind and solar.
Just so you understand. So this is an education by this man, right? Just so you understand, wind and solar
only work when there's wind and sun. We don't have technology to store the energy from wind and solar. So if you make yourself reliant on wind and solar, then if there's no sun and no wind, you get no energy. It's
So this gentleman is so dumb, he hasn't heard of a battery. We'll play it again. Apparently there's no way you can store wind and solar.
Wind and sun. We don't have technology to store the energy from wind and solar. So if you make yourself reliant on wind and solar, then if there's no sun and no wind, you get no energy.
So that man needs to be educated about things called batteries, Chewy, and how things, when it gets generated through wind and solar, can then be stored in these new inventions called batteries. So I just wanted to start off this conversation with showing you that Donald Trump is the dumbest man in world politics. His surrogates are some of the dumbest people in the world, full stop. And now I wouldn't mind having a little bit of a look at South Park. The thing about South Park that's interesting is it crosses many political spheres. Colbert got cancelled a couple of weeks ago. He was a negative 37 with Republicans, which means for every, 10 Republicans that watched him, that means it would be 47 didn't, to give a negative 37. South Park is +2. So South Park is a positively skewed program for Republicans. And the honest actors out there, like Joe Rogan, and he's being honest in this, is doing this.
Did you see the South Park episode?
Which one?
They did a Donald Trump.
No.
It's fucking hilarious.
I raised my 3 boys on that show.
Bridget Fedesi had a funny quote, like, when you think that they have reached the bottom of the highest level of not giving a fuck, they reach unseen levels. Did you see?
Now, I know lots of you will have big feels about Joe Rogan, but the one thing about that manosphere is South Park is a part of their world. Thing about South Park, and I'm sure not to educate you guys, what they are is anti the dominant culture. So some people have issues with South Park when they did an episode on transgender athletes, and they basically had Macho Man Randy Savage as a character who was a woman. But that's because in that time there was a very strong culture towards this conversation, and they went against it. They basically go against everything and they skewer everyone. And now what's happening is in the culture that Trump right-wing brosphere is dominant. So they're going against it. I've got heaps I want to play, Chu, but do you want to say anything? Do we need to explain? So everyone's seen it, eh? We don't need to go through the exact details of it.
So me and a mate watched it this weekend, and it must be over a decade since we've watched South Park.
Oh, really?
But I saw all the messages. I saw everybody saying, look, you've got to see this. I saw the White House's tweet saying that they are just scrambling and desperate for ratings. I saw somebody in the Magosphere saying that Matt and Trey need to be jailed immediately. So I had to watch.
Yeah.
I had to watch. And the thought that I had is that South Park termed the phrase the Streisand effect.
Yeah.
Due to one of their episodes, right? And they really established that. The idea that if the more you try and shut something down, the more people are going to want to see it. It's just a game that you cannot win. So for them to illustrate their own point at this stage, so long after they literally coined it, is amazing. But we were laughing our tits off the whole time and pretty much could not breathe for the final 5 minutes. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. But the fact that these guys have done this literally before the ink dries on a $1.5 billion deal.
No, that's not right. No.
This is not right?
No. 8 billion. So there are two television networks that have come together, Skydance and Paramount.
Oh,
that
so I'm
merger,
not talking about that. I'm talking
no,
about
you're not. I know what
South
you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. So these two companies are merging, and they needed the FCC approval, which means Trump could stop it if they want. The day before that episode came out, that $8 billion deal was done. The day after it, they did this. What Chewy's talking about is Matt and Trey have been very critical of Paramount and very critical of a whole bunch of things going around. In fact, the merger deal held up this series by 2 weeks. They sold 50 episodes plus all the streaming rights to the full catalogue to Paramount for $1.5 billion. And you're right. So that's that deal. So Matt and Trey are now worth $1 billion each. If you look at this celebritynetworth.com, and it's because the day before that came out, they signed a $1.5 billion deal. Matt and Trey did this really clever thing at the start when they started making this with Comedy Central. Matt and Trey said, in the future, we get 50% of any non-traditional television revenue before the internet, before streaming. And so when a deal gets signed, they get half of it to do with streaming. And of course, everything's now streaming. So that's where they've made a huge, one of those stories like George Lucas having the memorabilia contract for the first three Star Wars. It's one of the company kind of, oh, sure, you can go sell some lunch boxes. And there is no such thing as non-traditional television as what the networks thought. And so now they have this contract where they got all that money, and that's how they got it. So sorry, just to give the full picture, Chewy, that's the 1.5 billion. That's their personal take. Personal take. There's like 60 seconds on CNN, just to give us a bit of a rundown of the whole show, what happened and what they did. Let's have a bit of a quick look at what they've done. Oh, there's no sound on that. Let's do that again. That was a good build-up. Here we go.
The small town of South Park, Colorado is protesting against the president. The townspeople claim that the president, who is a great man.
A great man.
Great guy. We know he's probably watching. And we are just reporting on this town in Colorado that's being sued by the president, and they are fighting back.
And just to be clear, we don't agree with them.
Yeah. And so obviously, just for the one person watching that doesn't know, 60 Minutes edited a Kamala Harris interview, like a completely normal interview. Trump threw his toys and said, you made her look smarter than she is. I'm suing you for $16 million. And because this merger was going together worth $8 billion, right, they paid him. So Paramount or CNBC, I think it wasn't, or CBC or whatever it is, paid him $16 million to settle that lawsuit, even though it was not void. So this is obviously a commentary by the guys who are now on Paramount, a commentary about what pussies 60 Minutes is, and the managers at Paramount actually were for settling that.
Bit of a shot there at 60 Minutes. South Park season premiere was one for the history books. That episode aired one day before the FCC finally approved the Paramount Skydance merger that has seen lawsuits settled and shows canceled. As for President Trump's opinion on that particular South Park episode,
I've never watched South Park. I don't know anything about South Park.
Bullshit.
I never watched South Park.
a White House statement says the show's popularity has hit record lows. In fact, South Park is proving to be a very valuable asset as Paramount inked a $1.5 billion deal, to exclusively air South Park on its streaming channel. The creators had this to say about that first episode.
This is brilliant.
Did you anticipate the reaction today? Have you been following it? What do you make of it?
We're terribly sorry.
That's it. That's their only commentary on it. We're terribly sorry. Yeah, it's just fascinating. South Park creators make mock apology to Trump. We don't need to go through all of this, but it says we're terribly sorry. They're just, it's like this, right? This is how I thought of it. I was dumbfounded watching that episode. Like I can actually, this is how old I am. I can remember where I was sitting watching C4 when the Cartman Gets an Anal Probe show was shown for the first time. So I saw series 1, episode 1, purely by chance because I was sitting on a couch in Pakuranga as a student where I was flatting. What's happened, right? These guys have left Trump alone because basically he satires himself. They haven't really wanted to do too much on him. They had Garrison as Trump over the last couple of years, but they haven't really gone for him. But what it feels to me, I was watching it and I was going, holy shit, what? Like it was mind-numbingly different. What it feels like is the toughest kid at school. Chewy, the toughest kid at school, he knows jiu-jitsu, but he's actually quite a nice guy. Everyone likes him. He gets on really well with him. And then there's this bully who's been giving the classmates shit for years. And finally, the toughest guy in school who knows jiu-jitsu goes, I've had enough. And he demolishes the bully to the cheers and the joy of all the other kids in school. Trey and Matt are the jiu-jitsu masters at this because they hit all the immature things that will offend and annoy Trump more than anything. And it was something to behold. Like, honestly, you watch This Will Win Awards, this episode, it's amazing. It's amazing. And not only is it amazing for what they did to Trump, it's amazing for what they did to Paramount and CBS. They just, any interview with them, you'll see they say, we don't give a shit. Like, they took LSD and wore Jennifer Lopez dresses, went to the Oscars for Blame Canada, the song. They genuinely don't give a fuck. And if you ever question that, that was all I could think at the end of this. This is the most gangster thing I have ever seen anybody do ever in the world of entertainment, to go, fuck you all. It was unbelievable. So
it'll be interesting to see where they go from here, because I mentioned the last sort of couple of minutes of that episode is very different from the rest of it, right?
Yeah.
For those of you that haven't seen it, they've essentially done a live action thing, a pro-Trump message that the town has to do.
Yeah.
Where
So hang on, so you know that
the biblical story.
Yeah, so that the reference there is CBS has to give Trump $20 million worth of advertising along with that 16 million. So this is a direct, again, fist in the face of Paramount for doing that. So what you're seeing here is Randy signing off a deal, $3 million it's going to cost them, and they have to do pro-Trump advertising, and that's what you're just talking about. And I'll show you the card that you're talking about. The pro-Trump advertising looks a bit like, come on, we're South Park. We can do this. Anytime now. So, because I wonder if what we'll see is actually one of two things. Like, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about this this title piece, aren't you? This one right here, that one.
That. So I saw that and I was like, pro-Trump PSA, 1 of 50. And I'm just, if you've got 50 of these in the can and we're going to see them on every South Park episode until Trump's term is over, then that'd be amazing.
The other thing, and this would be, I think, even more gangster, because the guys who do jiu-jitsu, who have just beaten up the bully, they can now ignore him. They've done their job. That would be the other thing, if they basically never mention him again. It's like, we've done our job. We did what we needed to do. And I just wonder if
Don't worry,
that might be
it's going to get worse.
Yeah,
however
it's not
bad you think it is, it gets worse from there.
It does
worse
than
you
going to
could
see
possibly imagine.
Yeah. And the other big thing, the big middle finger, I guess it is, for actually, I'll take this over here and I'll read it to you. I am being a little bit careful with what we're doing to hopefully not get taken off or taken down. So Jesus comes back, and the storyline here is that as a part of the legal agreement, they wanted to have Jesus in schools more, again, much like Trump. But the actual script to this is amazing. Jesus says, he gives out their body, gives out their bread, do this in memory of me. And Jesus says, I'm going to not do the little voice, because he does it on his, like, he can't really hear what he's saying. He goes, I didn't want to come back and be in this school, but I had to because it was part of a lawsuit and the agreement with Paramount, just names them. The president is suing you. Clenched teeth. This is where he says it through the side of his teeth. This guy can do whatever he wants now that someone backed down. Okay? Eat the bread, eat the bread. You guys saw what happened to CBS? Yeah, well, guess who owns CBS? Paramount. Do you really want to end up like Colbert? You guys got to stop being stupid. We can't understand you, someone says, because he's got his clenched teeth, which you'll see in a second. Just shut up or we're going to get cancelled, you idiots. What the hell is he saying? Tom, they're calling it the Sermon from the Mount. This is the next guy. And then through clenched teeth again. If someone has the power of the presidency and also has the power to sue and take bribes, then he can do anything to anyone. It's the fucking president, dude. All of you shut the fuck up or South Park is over. It's fucking over. Just stop and shut the fuck up. It's what Jesus is saying to the people of South Park, talking about the television that is South Park and what the president could do to them all like he did to Colbert. I have no words. It's gangster. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen someone do in entertainment. It's better than any kind of you know how rappers call each other out in their lyrics and stuff. It's better than any of those. It's better than No Vaseline, in my opinion, by Ice Cube, which is the number one diss track in the world. The superlatives, I can't even think, so I'm not speaking straight. It's just so much better. Anyway, True, that's kind of all I was going to show. Do you want to add anything to the end?
Yes, the next South Park episode, we're just going to read to you. We're going to do a dramatic reading. I'll polish up on my Cartman, and also Pat will polish up on his Cartman as well. We'll just do it all in Cartman voices.
Okay, guys. Respect my character.
See, something to look forward to.
I just can't get over how we've said this so many times before, like, and it was a quote from Al Gore when he was talking to Jon Stewart, and Jon Stewart looks at Al Gore and he goes, why are we saying this on the Daily Show and none of the other news sites are saying it? Yeah. And Al Gore looks at him and he goes, because it's only the jester that can tell the king the truth without fear of getting their head cut off. And you've just seen the modern incarnation of it.
Well, there's another aspect to that fascists hate being made fun of.
Yep.
And I think if you look at, you know, Colbert was an example, right? Yep, it's an entertainment show, but at its heart, Colbert is a comedian. You know, the Colbert Report was long-running, and excellent, groundbreaking satire of the right-wing media. Yeah. That was so good that sometimes people mistook it for right-wing media.
Yep, 100%.
So, you know, the fact that Trump is taking shots at comedians, I think, really just plays into that thing that we wanted to avoid for the longest time of like, don't we call Trump a fascist? I think everybody that was saying unequivocally, yes, he's a fascist, don't be afraid to say it. They were right.
Yeah.
Like the further down this pathway they go, the more obvious it is.
Yeah. And, you know, it's been a weird few years because I'm going to say arguably, because some will disagree, people like Dave Chappelle have been on the top of the heap of stand-up comedians. And Dave went down a certain path and, you know, people pulled away from him because of his, I guess, social views and some issues, and it wasn't comfortable anymore. And then, you know, Elon Musk, hey, let's legalize comedy again. It's like, okay, bitch, here you go. Here's your legalized comedy. And it's probably an example of that whole thing about comedy. Comedy does punch at maybe whatever is making the most noise. And maybe there's a swing coming. You know, it's really interesting to see Rogan last thing, he burnt bridges, you know? Do you think Trump's ever going to want to talk to him again after he thinks that this was hilarious? Not that he should care, but he's actually at least being authentic in the world of comedy, realizing that these guys have done it. These guys have done what media should have been doing for the past decade. They've done it in one episode, and they've done it better than anyone's done it, which is why I'm thinking to it might just go away, you know? They've proved their point. Anytime you want to fuck with us, we can take you down. Proved your point. Maybe. And the little icing on the top was, you know, Saddam Hussein's voice as Donald Trump. And the devil going, whoa, you remind me of something else I used to go out with. A Middle Eastern dictator. Yeah, exactly. All right. Anything in the chat you want to get to?
Just some criticism. Need to work on your voice acting. It's harsh.
Yeah. Yep. I think there's a couple more stories to go. Let's do this one though, actually, because we've got a couple of interesting angles tonight. This is going to take us back to some stuff we've done in the past. This on some level hasn't been the biggest news story of the day. It came out on Friday, I think, but it should probably get some more press because, you know, I was going to start to write a list, Chewy, and maybe the government's been quiet for a few months, but, you know, at the start, Māori Health Authority, Smoke Free 2025, English First on government, there were so many things that were punching down on, if not on Māori themselves, on issues around Māoridom, you know? Last week, no karakia, you know, they've been around the whole time, and it just feels like this is one of the final kind of kick in the guts that the government wants to change the passports. The Te Pāti Māori says the government's changing to the passports are an attempt to whitewash the nation's identity. The government confirmed on Friday New Zealand passports are being redesigned to place the English words above the te reo word text. The new look won't start being rolled out until the end of 2027, which of course means if they get kicked out at the next election, they will never roll out. Just something to be aware of, people. Since 2021, passports have had Uru Whenua, Aotearoa, printed in silver directly above New Zealand passport. Internal Affairs Minister Brooke Van Velden said the positioning of text on passports will change to reflect the government's commitment to whiteness. Is that right? Commitment to being the superior white race. I can't quite, a bit blurry in my eyes. She said the redesign, which would be unveiled later this year, was being done as part of a scheduled security upgrade, ensuring no additional costs to passport holders. Te Pāti Māori co-leader Debbie Ngārewa-Paka said the change diminishes the visibility of tangata whenua. Our passport is not just a travel document, it's a statement of who we are as a nation. So the stripping down of te reo Māori, of marginalising our Indigenous identity, reflects the government's sad obsession with erasing te tiriti o Waitangi and dragging us back to a monocultural past, she said. Ngārewa-Paka said the move undermined Aotearoa's reputation as a leading nation in recognising Indigenous rights. Restoring our te reo took a long time. I mean, imagine doing this in Ireland. Imagine this to the Welsh. Interesting you'd mentioned the Welsh there. This was hard fought for. It's not reordering of words. It's reformatting is deliberately done to undermine the mana and to sideline us tangata whenua. Now, Chewy, you probably know where I'm going to go with this, seeing she brought up the Welsh. I'll do that in a second, though. You want any words around? It's another reason to get your passport in the next 18 months updated, whānau. If you don't, I'm due a passport. I think I'm going to go to the Gold Coast middle of next year. So get it before the end of next year, and you can have it for 10 years like that.
Mine expires next year, so that was the first thing that I thought of. What? A couple of examples there. So passports have foreign languages on them.
Oh my gosh!
Just what they do.
Do they?
And usually it's the language of the country that they come from. Who the fuck knows what Salmi is? Well, I don't know what this document is that you've got me because I don't understand Finnish. Back on the plane, fuck off. This does not happen. This does not happen. They tried to make it sound like we were doing international passport and immigration officers a favour by putting English on the top. That's what they tried to say, and I think that's worrying. That they think that that's a problem.
Yeah.
For immigration officers to see a foreign language and then just absolutely freak the fuck out. There's Ireland. Look at that. Irish at the top, on top of English. Now, unsurprisingly, all EU passports follow this same pattern because that's what we worked out, that the Indigenous language should be foremost by the UN's international agreement. Like, it is dumb. It is a waste of time. It has been roundly met with derision in the online space that I've seen. Mm-hmm. You just think of a password of a non-English speaking country and you will see the same format repeated. The Indigenous language or the, France, it's French, all of that sort of Italian is Italian, always at the top. This government says that it's laser focused on the cost of living. We here know that that's bullshit. This is another example of something that nobody has asked for, that has been announced and is put past the next election. So we know that if these guys get voted out, it's not happening. It's just nobody has mentioned this as an issue. And I think the only person that does is Winston Peters. Because when he dropped nuts and said, no, you can't just unilaterally change the name of a country, everyone said to him, maybe get out your passport, Mr. Foreign Minister, and see what's at the top. And I think it pissed him off.
I just so Whānau knows, I haven't seen it yet, but I noticed as I was coming on tonight that about an hour ago, Moana had Winnie on. So I'm sure that will be a part of tomorrow night's show. Tomorrow night.
I've seen a clip.
I haven't seen anything yet, but tomorrow night.
I think she did an amazing job with Shane Jones, so I can't wait to see that.
Here's the thing, Chewy. I'll put a slight discrepancy out there between what you've said and what we're going to go to. France, Germany, Italy, English is not the first language. So that could be seen slightly as different, or the dominant language rather than the first language. Wales, Ireland, English is the dominant language. So they're a good place to follow through on what we've done.
Yep.
And here's one I prepared earlier. We were lucky enough to speak to the Welsh Language Commissioner not too long ago. And we wanted to know, and because we were doing this, with this country of ours that we live in here, Aotearoa, New Zealand, the government is diminishing the Indigenous language. What are other countries around the world that have an Indigenous language, but a majority English spoken society? What are they doing? So I managed to connect with O'Shan, and I believe I'm correct in saying this, Llewellyn, it's like a sound at the start. And I'm just going to play you a couple of clips. This interview happened when we were a lot smaller. This is one of the probably most important interviews I reckon this podcast has ever done on this government and what they're doing, the bullshit they're getting up to. But it hasn't had anywhere near the kind of uptake it should have had because it was done like 15 months ago. So enjoy a bit of this if you haven't seen this. So this is talking about, what do you see around Cardiff when it comes to things like road signs and stuff? Because, English first. If I'm walking through Cardiff and I'm seeing street signs, road signs, school signs, hospital signs, am I seeing Welsh? Am I seeing English? Am I seeing both? How does it work?
You would see both languages on any signs that are displayed publicly, and that is the responsibility of government, local authorities, local health boards. You mentioned schools and education there. There is a statutory legal requirement on any signs that are displayed in public to be bilingual, with an emphasis on the Welsh language appearing first on those signs.
Oh, that's interesting, eh? Emphasis on the Welsh language coming first. We'll keep going. I'm going to play a little, there's about another 60 seconds to go, but just that's an interesting moment, isn't it? The Welsh language coming first. Weird. So that's a literal Welsh language first policy as opposed to the reverse.
There is a requirement on public bodies when putting signs up, new signs, and replacing all signs, that those signs have the Welsh language appearing first. But they are bilingual signs.
And sorry to make an absolutely pedantic question, because this is what's happening in New Zealand a little bit at the moment, the font between the English and the Welsh, is it exactly the same? Is Welsh, it needs to be a bit bigger than the English? Does it make any difference?
No, I think the regulations that we have in place, which places these legal duties on public bodies, they stipulate that when you do produce bilingual signs, that the Welsh language should be treated no less favourably than the English language, and that's in terms of font size, etc. So they are equal in that sense.
Is this conversation kind of a bit weird to you? Because the reason I'm asking these questions is we've had. That's right. This is I was going to play a bit more, but I'll play a second clip instead. So there you go. So this is the man who's responsible for the Welsh Language Commission. He's the commissioner, he was at the time. I'm going to go on. There's about another 2-minute clip here. And I asked him at the end of the conversation, imagine that you had left your job and you are now consulting around the world. And what should, what would you say to countries about celebrating their Indigenous languages or not? How would you consult to other countries? What does it add to a country to actually embrace its Indigenous language?
Well, I think the people of Wales, we recognise that we are a bilingual nation. We are a nation, we're a bilingual nation, but there are other languages that are spoken in Wales. But there are 2 official languages here in Wales, and it's important that we celebrate the language. The language is an inherent part of our nation's culture, and I think it's important that not only do we recognise that, in legal terms, but also in broader terms, but that we celebrate that. And I think the work that the International Association of Language Commissioners, for example, do. We learn from our experiences in various jurisdictions, but it's also an opportunity for us to celebrate the successes in respective jurisdictions. So I think it's really important that we embrace our culture, that we celebrate it, and that we give people the opportunities to use that language.
Last question, if you will like to play a game with me. And the game is, imagine you've finished working for the Welsh Language Commissioner and you're now out consulting to other countries as to why they should embrace their Indigenous languages. Here in New Zealand, we have a government at the moment who, it's not that they're not embracing it, but they're making sure that English comes first. What advice would you give to them in this split parallel multiverse as to why they should perhaps think about embracing our Māori language, or perhaps whatever country it is, their Indigenous language more heartily?
Well, I think, from our experience, look back to 2011, we're 15 years into this piece of legislation. And I think from our experience, we've seen a real step change in terms of the way that organisations deliver services through the medium of Welsh. And what that has meant is that the people here in Wales have more opportunities to use the Welsh language when they access services. They can see the Welsh language, whether that's on signs. They are able to access websites from public bodies. They are able to use the language in their everyday lives. And I think that's been we've seen a real step change in that sense. And as I said, I go back to the point I was making in response to your earlier question. I think it's really important that, any government reflects the culture and the values of that country, and language is an inherent part of that culture. So I think, it's important for any government to take proactive steps to promote minority official Indigenous languages.
So that's all I'm going to play for you from that conversation. A couple of things before I throw you the ball, Chewy. Just so people are aware, Welsh speakers are 17%. So it's not like it's an 80%, 17% Welsh speakers, which means obviously by far and away the English language is the dominant language. Here's the thing I discovered when I started doing that, and this is the uncomfortable truth, right? If you think about countries who are in the Commonwealth or who were in the Commonwealth, America could be included, USA could be included. If you think about those countries where the Indigenous language, for want of a better word, is brown, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, USA, those places. Those are the places where the government and the governmental bodies, and there is a big public push for squashing the Indigenous language and uplifting the European language. The countries in the Commonwealth where the Indigenous language would be seen as white, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, even though they're a minority, the government does the opposite. And I'm not saying, imagine this, Chewy will tell you, I spent weeks looking at this. We spent weeks looking over these things, going all over the world, connecting with people from Wales to talk to about it. Mm-hmm. The predominant white cultures with a brown Indigenous language squash it. The predominant white cultures with a white Indigenous language, they celebrate it. It's just as black and white as that. And there's one thing that I've never noticed before about this, and it's fascinating. They brought legislation, and they being Wales, brought legislation in 2011. And this is where they are 14 years later. Chewie, do you know off the top of your head, or do you want to have a guess when the Māori Language Act came in?
Wasn't it in the 90s?
1987. 1987. 1987. The Māori Language Act is turning 40 in 18 months.
Yeah.
These guys have been there for 14 years, and they are so much further ahead of us in how they're dealing with their Indigenous language. And part of it is simple as these people at the top, let's just say two things. They're speaking to their base who can't look at a brown face and go, I am them and they are me. They can't do that. And because they can't look at a brown face and go, I am them or they are me, they can't accept the language that comes out of that face. I've said this before a dozen times. I am Celtic. I am so white. I'm nearly pale blue. I'm one of those people who goes to the beach for a day, comes home and peels all my skin off that's just turned red. But I feel attached to the Māori story because the Māori story is a huge part, perhaps the biggest part of the New Zealand story. If you want to be a part of the New Zealand story, you cannot reject the Māori story. If you want to pass legislation to further the New Zealand story in New Zealand, you can't diminish Te Reo Māori or the Māori way of doing things. You can't. And this is what you don't quite understand. If you can't look into a brown face and see yourself, no matter how pale blue you are, my ginger brothers and sisters, then you are the problem in this country, Joey.
Yeah. I'm the problem in this country. How dare you, sir?
You are the problem in this country, semicolon. Chewy.
See, grammar counts. Look, just a couple of more examples. Look, not just English, since we're just talking about South Africa. There's another one. Notice the theme. These are all just chosen at random, by the way. Like, these countries seem to be proud of their language and culture. And I think this is the thing that the government is saying, is that Māori is not our culture. English is our culture. And I'm sorry, I utterly reject that, because I can look at a map. We're a South Pacific nation. Second place doesn't get to own everything. Doesn't get to determine what our culture is. I'm not Māori. I take great pride in Māori culture on the global stage, though, because that's where I'm from. You know, it's this is just cheap culture war bullshit. And I won't have it. I will be replacing my passport before they have the chance to ruin it.
Just to expand on what you're saying, though, Chewy, because I think it's interesting you showed those passports. What about if we show passports akin to New Zealand? So obviously I'm talking about, and I made a pretty strong statement. The countries that have a Indigenous language that is not white, but a predominant society that are white, they are the ones that squash it. So look at Australia's passport. Bink. Meat. I've got to take you off, don't I? They're meat. Australia.
Yeah. Is anybody surprised by that? No.
But same again, look at USA, United States of America. Now, because what obviously we're looking at the other way, and Chewy's showing you is a bunch of ones that also maybe English is not the number one language, but the pattern continues, right, of those colonised countries, those Commonwealth countries, those countries that had input from the UK, England, that have now, because obviously it might not be the same in India, because they were incredibly colonised, but they are not a majority white population. So the ones where the population is majority white, Caucasian, European, whatever you want to say, they're the ones that are going, Aboriginal, Māori, Native American, we don't worry about that. English. I have to tell you, and I'll be blunt, if when you hear English first, you don't hear white supremacist, then there is something wrong with your hearing. That is code. It is dog whistle for no thank you, brown, white is superior. That's what it means. And even if we were generous and say some of these thick politicians don't understand what they're saying, that's what they're saying. They're saying diminish brown, enhance white. It's white supremacy. It is bringing the white language into a superior position in society. Couldn't be clearer. And whānau who know this show, I'm very reticent at making big, massive labels like that. But it is the dictionary definition of saying, see this white concept and see this brown concept. We're going to make the white concept superior to the brown one. It's actually, it can't be described any other way. No matter what people say about, Chewy's given fantastic examples about, the passport being easier to use. Oh, so how is English going to be easier than today when you're walking into Uzbekistan?
Well, I mean, here's a couple of examples a little bit closer to home that are colonised Pacific nations. So Tonga's decided that they should have Tongan at the top of their passport. So there's a good analogy there. Samoa, English at the top, but we'll have Samoa there. India. Yeah,
are you changing photos? Because we're still seeing Tonga.
Oh,
I'm still seeing
yes,
Tonga.
sorry. Republic of India.
Yeah.
And Samoa. So, I mean, there's some examples of Commonwealth countries that have gone in various directions.
Yeah, but do you know what it is, right? Here's the thing. Samoa, cool, do that, go for it. Part of this is the song and fucking dance they're making about this. Part of this is the announcement. They want people to know English first. They haven't just changed it, and they haven't just kind of gone, I didn't really think about that. But yeah, no, I see your point, but this is just the design that we all agree to. They've gone, hey, attention, get my flags out. People, are you listening, people? Because from now on, people, English first. This is basically, and again, it's exactly what Brooke Van Velden did. It's an announcement about an upcoming announcement. But the announcement that they want to make sure the nation knows is English first. So Samoa they've made a decision. Sure, it's their passport. They can make any decision they want. But this has got venom to it. This has got an angle to it, which is, hey, in my opinion, hey, voters, in 14 months' time, remember, English first, English first, English first, vote for us, English first. That's what it is. I mean, because what does this, if they were just making a new design and it came out of English first, I mean, we wouldn't be okay with that necessarily, but they're making a song and dance about it 15 months out before they're doing it. Why the fuck are they making a song and dance out of it? Because it's a message for a certain sector of society. That's why. Because there's no reason to be announcing this 15 months out from when it's going to come into play.
So we've got two strikes there. This government is laser focused on the cost of living. Right, we know that's not true with everything that is not focused on the cost of fixing the cost of living. They've proven that they don't want to do anything about that. They do have time to do this. And the other part of it is what Luxon said on election night, that he was going to lead a government for all New Zealanders. And this is again clearly showing us that that is not true either. So if you believed him and voted for him and are wondering how you got to this place, there we go.
We're going to keep going because I think this actually does flow into the voting thing quite well, the voting conversation. But because there's a few chats in there, we'll do the chats first and then we'll go straight in because there is other things this government is doing at the moment, which is a middle finger to the voter, especially the voter on the left. So if that narrative is all about speaking to their right-wing voters, then the next narrative is basically giving the middle finger to their left-wing voters. So we'll go straight into it. But first, Peter says this is the same as the blue Brexit passport thing. Gary says, great idea. Time to renew my passport a few years before it needed to be replaced. Minister of Tourism should be saying loudly, Māori culture is the USP of our tourism sector. I used to have this conversation all the time, and I've told you this before on ZB to my lovely racist overnight audience when we'd be talking about New Zealand, and I'd say, name me one thing that's unique in this country. Like, what's the unique thing? And like, there's the flora and the fauna, right? Yep, cool, got that. The animals and the plants. But what's one part of our, like the rest of the world knows us as unique? And I don't want to
Dave Dobbin.
The Australians claimed him. It's the Māori culture. In other words, it's our one USP. It's our one unique selling point. It really is. What else is there? There's nothing else. Howie EV 600 live. That's a big crowd, and you're doing it night after night. You bring hope. Big up. Oh, thanks, Howie. That's just on YouTube too, because if you count in other places, it's currently 8:35 live. Wooming says, sadly, our systems reinforce white supremacy. Thank you all for your super chats. Right, let's keep trucking. Because
Pat.
What?
You missed a few. They're not super chats, but you missed a few. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. This is Wayne's only comment on our channel ever.
Ah.
Hi, Wayne. Welcome.
Is that us or is that the government?
I think it's aimed at us.
Okay.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thanks, Wayne.
And JMac suggests that the unique thing is mince pies. I don't know if that's true, but it deserves to be highlighted.
Pies are pretty unique. People tourists who come here and then want to come back, they're like, the first thing they do when they get off a plane is a steak and cheese pie. So yeah, it's a pretty unique thing. Now I have some investigative things to share with you. I was in contact with the electoral, what is it called? Fuck me.
Commission?
Electoral Commission. I said electoral and I threw myself, but that's not how you fucking say that word. The Electoral Commission. I was in touch with the Electoral Commission today, and I've got some information for you just to put more cold water on this bullshit thing this government thinks it's going to do. And I'll explain all that shortly. But let's first of all find out how the government is breaching the Bill of Rights with this new legislation, and Luxon's fine with that.
The government will press ahead with its voting law changes, despite the Attorney General saying it goes against the Bill of Rights. In a report, Judith Collins has sharply criticised the proposed changes, saying they would deprive more than 100,000...
Lordy, if Judith Collins is criticising it, how low do you have to go, Luxon? Honestly.
It's a spill. She's going to roll them.
To vote. Demelza Leslie reports.
Doubling down, the Prime Minister Christopher Luxon says the voting law changes will be going ahead.
It's not unreasonable to ask people to be enrolled 13 days before election day, as you have said.
Let me say this right from the start. What he's saying is not incorrect. It's not unreasonable to expect that. It is ridiculous to think it's going to happen. And what he's saying is, if you don't get around to something, we're going to take your right to participate in democracy away. I was supposed to pay for my dog license by the end of June. I didn't get around to it. Slipped my mind. I forgot it. I paid it over the weekend before I was going to get a penalty. I should not have paid it over the weekend. I should have paid it at the end of June. He's basically saying, if you forget, we're going to come and kill your dog, the equivalent of. If you put anything in the way of democracy, if you hinder one person from being able to vote, even if they're in the wrong, Mr. Luxon, even if we agree with you that they should have been registered, I don't actually have a problem with that idea. Even if we agree that they should have, that doesn't mean you get the right to take their vote away. Mm-hmm. We've had a system like this for 30 years. You don't get to come in and change the system because you think it's best, because many of us don't think that's what it's about. This is just another example, Chewy, also, of these things that weren't spoken of prior to the last election, that there is no mandate for, that these guys are going to just push through, even though we now know it's against the Bill of Rights. Nothing needs to be done. You have no right to take away someone's right to vote, even if they're the laziest shit in New Zealand. Even if they're like, I can't be asked, I don't want to vote. And then a week before the election, they go, oh, no, actually, I think I will. They're allowed to. You don't get the right to do that. Any impedance on someone's ability to vote is an attack on democracy. Full stop. I'm going to push play, Chewy. Do you want to say anything before we go?
Yeah, I just want to say that remember the reason that they're doing this is because by their reckoning, it might delay getting an election result by a week.
Yeah.
Is that worth disenfranchising 100,000 New Zealanders of voting age?
Well,
Does-
funnily enough, Chewy, that's what I was talking to the Electoral Commission about today. So we'll get into a bit more of that as well. Way to go.
Yep.
Way we go.
Before it's 26 days in Australia, and that gives people plenty of time.
The report by Attorney General Judith Collins found the changes clashed with constitutional rights. She said scrapping enrolment once voting begins could disenfranchise more than 100,000 people. Young voters, Māori, Pacifica and Asian people would be the worst affected.
There have been a number of strategies used over the centuries by unpopular governments to ensure that they can't be removed from power in a popular election. Voting bans like these are one among those strategies.
Collins also reported a ban on prisoner voting breaches the Bill of Rights and can differ wildly depending on timing, like this example. Someone imprisoned for only a month, which happens to include polling day, can't vote. Yet a murderer paroled weeks before the election could vote.
I suspect if it was people in prison for life or longer than 10 years, the courts and the Attorney General might say that was a reasonable limit. But setting it so that anyone...
Yeah, that was Emmy beforehand, for sure.
...sentenced to prison doesn't get to vote, that's where it's sort of arbitrary.
There's no public safety argument to be made. Actually, no positive argument of any kind was ever advanced in favour of this prisoner voting ban. It was conceived arbitrarily and passed arbitrarily. Nobody has ever tried to present a justification for it, other than that the government thinks this will play well with their base.
The Prime Minister says the electoral system has been unsustainable and denies he's playing to his base.
No, I disagree completely. What we're doing is saying, we've acknowledged that we've got an electoral commission that usually would count a vote in 20 days. I just say to you, around the world, that's pretty slow.
Judith Collins' report is not binding, but it's likely to be considered as part of the Select Committee process. Demelza Leslie, One News.
So the other thing you've got to put out there, Chewy, is if we're going to start to run our country based on what other countries do, I'm interested to once again have that conversation around the capital gains tax, because, other countries, if that's the reason we're doing it. Now, so I'll tell you what I did, Chewy. Did we talk about this last Thursday? About the special votes and that? Or have we not talked about this yet? I can't actually remember.
We spoke a little bit about special votes.
So here's the thing I thought today. Special votes get counted after the election. Early voting gets counted from 9 a.m. on election day. Votes made on election day start to get counted at 7 p.m. And as Chewy pointed out so beautifully last week, on election night, this time around, someone made a victory speech on the night. So this whole kind of having to wait for the results thing is the minor bits around the edges. Normally what happens is the Greens may pick up a seat because they're quite heavily involved in the international votes. There was a victory speech, as Chewy pointed out so beautifully, last election on election night. Right, so that's the first thing. The second thing, though, they're talking about the vote, people who register in that 13-day window become special votes. What about all the other special votes? So, Chewy, my question is this. How long does the Electoral Commission have to count the votes that come from overseas? Because they're not counted on the night. They're not counted the day after. Just in case you want to know, and I've confirmed all this with the Electoral Commission today, they send back the paper votes. They get counted in New Zealand, right?
Yeah, you go into an embassy or high commission.
Yep.
You literally fill out the thing and they put it in the box and then they send the box home.
Yep.
Sealed.
Yep.
It's never
100%.
unsealed.
100%. So that means there can't be a final election result on election night because there's a whole bunch of special votes to go. Our 2020 election, 2 million early votes. Now, I asked the Electoral Commission today, are they all counted by, they start at 9 o'clock in the morning on election day. Are they finished by 7 o'clock? And the consensus was like, no, they'll go days after that. Okay, so they go days after that. The same for if you're, if you're in Queenstown, but your electorate is in Hamilton East or something, they all get counted afterwards as well. They start and they get counted. Here's the big one though. If you're again in Uzbekistan, and you go to the New Zealand High Commission and you cast your vote on election day, How long has that vote got to get back to New Zealand? Here's an email I got back from the Electoral Commission today. Kia ora, Pat. Thank you for your call earlier. We allow 10 days for postal votes to be returned from overseas. Overseas votes are processed and counted in New Zealand. At the last election, the most popular way of voting from overseas was using the upload and download service. This is when voters download their voting papers, fill them out, and then return them by upload to the Electoral Commission website. 83% of overseas voters use this service to return their voting papers. Here are the deadlines for overseas voters, and the only one that really matters is that one down the bottom. 24th of October. So that means at the very quickest amount of time that we can get an official election result come out is 11, 12 days after an election. That's the quickest, full stop. No other chances, because that's 10 or 11 days to get whatever the paper ballots are back from overseas, couple of days to process them. So we're not talking about 2 weeks. We're not talking about 3 weeks. At the very least, we're talking about 2 days. Because if they've got for 10 days, or 11 days that is, and then there's got to be processing, that's 12 days. So you're talking 2 days difference to make it to 2 weeks. Or therefore you're talking 9 days difference. So that's what we're talking. So this whole change, this disenfranchising of potentially 100,000 plus people is over a maximum of 9 days. It's not 3 weeks. Don't let them tell you it's 3 weeks. It's a maximum of 9 days because the overseas votes take 10 days plus counting. Okay, so that no government has said we're going to change that system, so that system's in place. That system is 10 days after the election plus counting.
But Pat, Paul Goldsmith suggested that it would take a month or more unless they made changes. Are you saying that Paul Goldsmith wasn't being honest with us? Are you saying that our leader, Christopher Luxon, doesn't know what the fuck's going on? Surely that can't be the case. I refuse to believe... I'm sorry, I can't even get through that. Sorry, no, I absolutely believe all of that.
I'm saying this to all the media who get feedback from our show. Do your fucking jobs. They don't and won't respond to us. You sat there in the cabinet post-cabinet session and nobody went, what about overseas voting? That takes 12 days already. You guys let Luxon say 3 weeks, implying under their system it'll all be finished on the night of. No, it won't. Uzbekistan calling 10 days after the election. 2 days to count the votes. 12 days after the election. So we are talking about somewhere between 2 and 9 days to disenfranchise 100,000 people. We are talking about making the count faster by somewhere between 2 and 9 days.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It won't functionally change the outcome of the election. Like,
it wouldn't be worth it if they saved 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. It wouldn't be worth it. There's nothing worth stopping someone's right to participate in the voting process. The irony is it's not 3 or 4 or 5 weeks better. It's 2 to 9 days. There's nothing worth it to stop someone participating in democracy. And for this government to stand up and be all kind of Pollyanna, it's all for a good reason. You are absolutely following the right wing, and I'll say it, fascist playbook coming out of America. You are trying to stop people from voting. There is no other way you can skin this. You are trying to stop people, and we know from research that primarily swing to the left voting. Sorry, Terry, I'll step back.
So last election, it was very clear who was going to win the election, by my recollection, by about 8. Yeah. yeah, 8 o'clock it was like, oh, it's going to be a national-led government, right? Which is the meat and potatoes of the whole thing. After that, it's just the format of the deck chairs.
Yeah.
Right. And that took a little bit longer because the special votes came in. Some parties gained seats, some lost seats, but it was all fiddling around the edges. Let's say it was a very different election. Let's say it was much, much closer than we got last time. Now, at that point, you wouldn't want speed then either.
Yeah.
You'd want accuracy.
Yeah.
So all of this path about, oh, well, it could take a week longer. And it's unsustainable. How is it unsustainable? How? And he goes internationally, it's very slow. Is he talking about other MMP elections? Because the big one, the first country in the world to have an MMP electoral system was Germany. See how long their results take to come in.
And the other thing is part of the, and there was a good interview. I was going to use the one from RNZ. I didn't because TVNZ sort of did a bigger picture. But on RNZ, when Luxon was being interviewed about this, one of the reasons that the Attorney General's, the Bill of Rights came out was actually the history of how we vote is a part of this. So in other words, New Zealanders are accustomed to registering in that timetable, in that time period. So that's why it's not okay to change it, because this is how we vote. And because that's how we vote, one uppity little fucking thumb-printed Prime Minister doesn't get to come along and change it because he's scared he's going to lose the next election and he wants to try and knock out 50, 60, 70,000 voters from the left. Because this is how we've done it since the 90s. A part of the Bill of Rights is basically saying, so we got to expect to be able to do it like this because you know what? There'll be a sector of society, I know this is hard to believe, whānau, that don't live on the internet talking New Zealand news. They won't know about this. There'll be a sector of society that won't participate, they won't know, but they'll know one thing. Every 4 years we vote. And I can get registered right up until the day. And those people won't have got, they won't have got the 3 years. They won't have got the email from Luxon, and they'll turn up on the day to register and they'll go, sorry, you can't. Mark my words, if this happens at the election, if this goes through and happens at the election, there will be people who bowl up on the day to get registered not knowing that they can't. You don't have the right to disenfranchise those people from voting. As much as they typically do vote for the right, the uneducated voter, right? The what do they call it in America? Ones without degrees, whatever that is. You don't have a right to disenfranchise them. You don't have the right to disenfranchise anybody. And I'm fucking furious about this. You might tell.
Yeah,
it's
super
something.
dumb. But this is coming from guys that don't like MMP. They want first past the post.
Yeah,
and that's probably one of the only advantages of first past the post is that you get an answer quicker. And this is just another way that they're fiddling with the fucking format of the thing because they don't like the thing. It's dumb and it needs as much pushback as possible.
Low information. That's what they call them. Low information. Voters.
I also saw this comment, and when we talked about it last week, it came up as well. So I absolutely wanted to clarify and answer this for people. Question: if your 18th birthday falls within 5 days before an election, under this law, you won't be able to vote. That is not correct. So you can register to vote from your 17th birthday. So for all the young people in their in your lives that are maybe worried about this, tell them that they can register. If they're over 17, they can register now.
But the difference is, for those who don't know that, Chewy, they might just think, oh, I turn 18 on the Monday and voting's on the Saturday. I'll just do it on the day. Dad said he did it like that last time round. I'll just do it that way.
Yeah.
And then they'll be disenfranchised.
Yeah.
And of course, as you know, the research is clear. Those young voters, they swing left. Government would like knocking out a few of those. Look, you can't convince me, you cannot convince me that this is anything other than, I was going to say a vote grab, the other way around, a vote suppression. of people going, how do we get fewer people on the left to vote? Oh, I know. Let's do this thing. So here's the thing. Okay, here's the very least of the thing you should do. It should go to a referendum. There's step one. I wouldn't even do that because it's constitutional. You don't make constitutional law based on referendum. But you don't also make last minute, throw it out there to help yourself get re-elected law based on constitutional law either. I'll tell you one thing, Whānau. Tanya Waikato's onto this. So you want to see scary? Tanya's onto this. We might even have her on Wednesday to have a chat about it, because we're not going to drop this. We're not. I'm not dropping this. I don't know. I actually don't know why I feel so passionately about this, but we're not dropping this. This is going to stick. We're going to keep this one in the forefront. So, all right. Anything else, Chewy, on that? Any other chats? Why don't you put some chats out there and I'll try and calm down a little
I'll
bit.
put up some chats then. Women, last election I was an observer of the voting count. People working on the count were amazing. This coalition of callousness is just shitting on them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nat and ACT can afford to lose 7 overseas votes. Peter says, our system isn't broken, but this bill will break it. Going back to our conversation about language and stuff like that, Rajan says, people often think of white supremacy as someone wearing a swastika or a KKK robe, but the way I think of it, it's a simple treating as white as the default. 100%. Yeah, and that's why people get real pissy when you say this is white supremacy, and they're like, no, it's not doing a Hitler salute.
I mean, just think of what we said. It's making the quote unquote white language superior to the quote unquote brown language. I mean, what else would you call it?
Yeah, it's first. Exactly. Yeah. Citizen Gold, if it's against the Bill of Rights, how is Luxon allowed to just push it through?
Because they said that Judith Collins' report is not binding. It's basically advice.
Yeah. Jeremy is late. Just thought you know.
How dare you?
And we'll save that last one for the end of the show.
Okay. All right, guys. Taking a breath. Let's get into the last conversation of the night. Chippy was on, is it called Front Page. I keep wanting to call it Front Page this week. And it was an interesting conversation. And he said some interesting things about, tax the rich and various bits and bobs. Well, I subtly look for my notes because I've got so many pieces of paper. Here it is. Yeah, that'll do. In fact, this is the first clip. The first clip's about taxing the rich. And I actually think, I don't disagree with Chewy. I don't agree with him in that I would do what he's doing. But I think that we need to also understand that if we're going to have a left coalition, that does go from the centre all the way to the left. And there needs to be some ideas and policies that get those sort of more moderate people in there. We've said it before about the phrase defund the police. Defund the police is not a clever phrase because it does just give ammunition to the right to say they want to have no police, they want to have no money for police, which is not what defund the police means. It means reallocating some of the funds into other services like mental health issues for when there is a mental health emergency rather than turning up with tasers and guns. Defund the police doesn't explain that very well, so it's not a very helpful use of a slogan. Chippy basically says tax the rich is a bit like that. And I get it. I don't agree with him. I'm perfectly happy with me and us to use that phrase, but I get why someone more moderate that needs to get those centre-left voters on board might go that path, and I'm okay with it.
Because it means that ultimately governments, and yes, we're spending more money on ECE, but we're getting more money because of the parents earning more money.
What do you think about taxing the rich?
I think I don't like the phrase. And the reason I don't like the phrase is because I think that tax fundamentally should come down to fairness. Everyone should pay their fair share. Everyone should make a contribution. We all benefit from health, education, the infrastructure that we build, things like roads. We all benefit from that. We all benefit from having a police force. We all benefit from having a good justice system. We all benefit from having a defence force. So we should all contribute to the cost of those things. And the tax system should be fair, which means those on higher incomes, and I am one of those people, should pay more. And I'm quite proud to say that I'm happy to pay more as someone on a higher income. I accept that, it's a great tagline,
It fits on a poster.
And it fits on a poster, but it creates a culture of resentment about taxes. Taxes aren't a punishment. You know, taxes are the contribution that we all make to living in a decent society.
Yeah, and so like he's obviously much more softly. It's not the path I'm going to take. I think it's evident from tonight's rants. But I do understand how some. I mean, you think about, you know, your grandparents or your retired, you know, mum and dad or whatever, who have always sort of voted Labor. I mean, that's just something that might not quite sit with him. I don't know. I'm okay with different parts of the left evoking the same idea using different words. He is saying the same thing. He's making it fair. Others will say tax the rich. I don't think it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, like okay. So my reaction to that is what soft, but yeah, he's not talking to me.
Yeah,
I'm not the audience of that show. I'm also not going to vote Labor. But this is one of the reasons why. But this is the joy of the system that we have, right? Is they have other choices. But if he can talk to the audience that would be 100% turned off by the idea of tax the wealthy, because one day they might be magically wealthy, and they don't want that. If it's a softening of the message that gets those people to vote for Labor, and those people that will accept that some changes to our tax policy is required, then yeah, sure. Yeah, but yes, look, my gut reaction is no. Soft.
Yeah, but that's because. But I think you've spelled it out. That's because it's not for you. Mystery Stranger says it right here. Using fair share might be better for centre folks. I think if they're all saying the same thing, and I actually think they basically are, right? In a way that is more palatable to their audience, that's okay. Because if it's all the same, but if it's all the same thing, then when they get onto the ninth floor and sit around the cabinet table with Te Pāti Māori and the Greens, whether you call it a fair share or tax work less, tax wealth more, or whatever, it's basically the same thing to draw out the legislation you're then going to put into practice.
Now I'm going to put a caveat on this though.
Go on then.
What I don't want to see is Nostradamus in effect here.
Nostradamus.
Nostradamus, trademark. When our left bloc cruises to an easy and brutal victory in the next election, what I don't want is a massive watering down. Okay, so everybody's agreeing that there is some sort of wealth tax. Maybe we're going to call it a fairer tax system. Maybe we're going to eat the rich. Maybe it's somewhere in between there.
Just nibble on their legs, not eat them entirely.
I just don't want Labor to fail at that first hurdle, jam on the brakes and go, we can't piss off people for the next election. Because we've seen from this government how much you can move shit if you just go, fuck it, the majority of people voted for us. That's a mandate. Let's go.
But also probably depends who's asking for what. And this does kind of lead into another one of the conversations because as you can see from the heading up here, normally what you do this when you're looking for clickbait is you give the spiciest heading you can. Why Chris Hipkins believes smaller parties shouldn't quite call the shots under MMP. He's obviously talking about this current lot, Chewy. So, yep, they can go, fuck it, let's just do whatever we want. But it depends who's driving it as well. Like Luxon is a terrible leader, right? And he's got the two small and minor parties running him around. But then again, we might actually want the two smaller parties to drive Labor around. How does that work? So this is a little part of the conversation where Christopher Hipkins talks a bit about how these smaller parties shouldn't be calling the shots in a coalition government. I don't necessarily agree with him, but I can see the concerns based on if the other lot were to get in again and ACT and New Zealand First was to have a second crack at this.
But I differ a bit from the current government in the sense that, I respect the important constituencies the smaller parties represent. And I also respect that we compete with them for votes too. I don't think under MMP the smaller parties should call all of the shots. I still think that the bigger parties have a mandate to reflect the view of a much larger section of the electorate. And so I do think under MMP, you need to kind of keep proportionality in mind. Yes, there should be some concessions and some trade-offs to the other parties in order to form government. But that doesn't mean that you should be doing things that you specifically told the electorate before the election that you weren't going to do.
Like the
Yeah, but the problem with that, Chippy, is if that's a must-do to get into power, then what do? We've seen it work very badly for Luxon. But if a minor party goes, well, we're not going to, this is the only thing we promised we would do. This is another reason you don't want to be shitting on your potential coalition partners and their policies, because if you get into a butting heads, someone's going to lose, someone's going to look foolish, and someone's supporters are going to be pissy. It's actually there's a bit of a tightrope there.
You'd be doing things that you specifically told the electorate before the election that you weren't going to do.
Like the Treaties Principle.
The Treaty Principles Bill is a good example. The Regulatory Standards Bill, some of these things that no one knew they were voting for at the last election, and now they're being inflicted on them. I don't think that's the spirit of MMP or democracy. I think, the majority should still rule in a democracy, and at the moment that's not happening. We're currently being ruled by a minority, a small minority, and I don't think that's what New Zealanders voted for.
Yeah, but I also think that this is a hard thing to say. If we're supposed to, rule by majority, cool. No one's got majority. National didn't get majority. They got the largest slice of the pie. So if we're ruling by majority, it is kind of ruling by block. Only one party ever has had a majority under MMP, and that was Labor through COVID. So if what Chippy's saying is ruling by majority, sure, the majority is the left block or the right block, because Labor won't have a majority, National won't have a majority. So then what?
I think what Chippy's saying here is very good. Like, I don't have any criticisms of it really, but I think if our current government was acting like Chris is saying here, that they were acting with proportionality, because in a mirror universe, Christopher Luxon can negotiate good, which is not what we have in our universe. We wouldn't have these ultra divisive policies.
Yeah,
we would still have stuff like all of the social housing being cancelled and emergency housing being cancelled. We would still have bad stuff, but I don't think we would have nearly as much racially charged stuff, because that is clearly coming from ACT. A little bit from New Zealand First. The anti-trans stuff is coming from New Zealand First, and it's all being front loaded, right? But I think National is more in the middle and knows that this stuff is a run straight into a hiding. But the absolute lack of leadership, the hands-off sort of delegations to other party leaders, other party policy, and just throwing it away and go, well, that's a coalition for you. Like, that's the aspect of it.
It is.
And I think what I want is basically a reversal. Greens to Party Māori, Labour, and Greens and Te Party Māori just yanking Labour to the left, as hard as they can.
But that means that's not doing what Chippy just said, because that's the minor party.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what I want. Now, is that massive seismic shift from right to left, or vice versa, is that good for the country? No, it's probably not, because everyone's head would be spinning.
The thing that's really interesting about this kind of game of politics is those negotiations after a election. It's a game of poker. And I mean, we already heard that Luxon folded his hand incredibly quickly to ACT, because ACT both said and Luxon never corrected it. Yep. That the Treaty Principles Bill wasn't a bottom line. So they never got to the point of negotiations where someone was going to have to blink. So I wonder two things, right? I wonder if you had a decent negotiator. Luxon is obviously not one of them, and that's not me taking the piss. That's just based on what we know about the negotiations for this government. What would happen? Or two, that if a minor party did actually dig their heels in, and these guys didn't because Luxon folded, and a minor party went, nope, if you want to be government, I want this, what would happen? Now, it's not a commentary on good, bad, or indifferent. I'd just be interested to know how that would work, if it would work. Like if the Greens, for example, said, we want Chloe to be Deputy Prime Minister, and we're non-negotiable on that, what are they going to do? And if Luxon said, not Luxon, Hipkins said that's never going to happen, and they went, well, we've never really been in cabinet, it's time. We want half the cabinet seats. Whatever it is. I'm just interested to know how that would work.
And look, I think the other aspect here is, say in that example, both of those left bloc parties have been in positions before of going, okay, well, if we're not going to get any meaningful policy across the door, we're quite happy to do supply and demand.
Supply and confidence, yeah.
So, yeah, supply and confidence. So if they get to that position next year in a crushing and an inevitable victory, I think the negotiating space is going to be really good. Look, first of all, I think Chris Hipkins is probably a better negotiator than Luxon is.
Much to the chagrin of Luxon's ego.
Second of all, he's going to be massively outnumbered going up against two groups of co-leaders.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Chloe,
4 against
Marama,
1. Yeah.
Yeah. Debbie.
4 against 1. Yeah.
Oh, God, what is his name?
Rawiri.
Yeah. So, look, if nothing else, it'd be interesting. But, look, I think there's more spine in the left bloc than there is in the right at this point. And I think that is going to be... like the current government held up the left bloc as a coalition of chaos. And like it is every time, every accusation is an admission. So we've seen chaos. I don't think the left bloc would be chaos.
We've seen chaos.
You know what needs to be done.
David be thy name. So I think we've got to play this. I was just ready to wrap up. I think, should we skip the last one? But it is on the capital gains tax, and that's obviously a big part of what we're interested in. So it's 2.5 minutes. I might not get to the whole thing, but we'll get the gist of what Chippy said today about capital gains tax.
In our poll, we asked, do you support or oppose the introduction of a capital gains tax on properties other than the family home? 46% of voters are in support of the idea, while 41% oppose it and 13% either don't.
So that just goes to show this is not controversial anymore. I mean, this may not be a scientific poll, but every time it is polled, it is no longer controversial. For God's sake, why does anybody think that actually putting one of these in place, I mean, even if it was one more than that, your first 2 houses, so you can have a home and a batch, whatever, this is no longer controversial, right? That it can be put in, there's actually no negotiation needed. It will win you votes rather than lose you votes, as you can see by the numbers. Get onto it.
Don't know or preferred not to say.
I read something published on RNZ. This was in December, though, and it suggested that you will be campaigning on a capital gains tax at the next election, and that, quote, details would be announced as early as mid-next year. Now, it's past mid-next year now. It's July now. Any word on that, how that might look?
Yeah, well, I've said that we'll announce our policy on that before the end of this year, because I think it is important, that is a big policy area.
Now, just putting this out there to Universe Chippy, you're going to come on here and do that, eh? We're talking about you should come and announce it here and then give it to the rest of the media who won't ask the questions. You know how they don't do that?
People want to know where they stand. Certainly people to my left, on the left of politics, get really excited about tax debates. And I understand that. But we also need to talk about how we get people into good, well-paid jobs, how we, generate more wealth for the country. And we need to do that as well as ensuring that the benefits of that are, fairly shared by everybody. And you can't have one side of that debate without the other. So tax is one of the ways we ensure that everybody, gets their fair share and pays their fair share. But we've also got to make sure that we're generating, good, well-paid jobs, that we've got businesses who are doing well so they can employ more people. And I don't think you can separate those two things. I think those two things do need to go together.
So you will commit to yes or no by the end of this year?
Yeah, and look, we're going to have a different tax policy to the one we had at the last election, very upfront about that. In New Zealand, I think we've placed...
I think what they're saying is the Greens tax policy, Chewy. Don't you think that's what they're saying? Have the Greens tax policy?
Just the Greens logo crossed out.
Just a little side note. Notice he said a fair tax system again. That's the second time he's pushed that out there in this interview. So we might be getting a little bit of a hint as to their new messaging.
Far too much emphasis on buying and selling houses amongst ourselves, pushing up the price so that potentially a whole generation of homeowners is being shut out of the housing market, and not enough emphasis on productive investment, on building businesses that employ people, that allow them to earn more money.
100%.
And our tax system currently encourages people to do that, to basically go and just speculate in the residential property market. And that's not going to make us rich as a country. So I think our tax system does need to change. I understand why mums and dads have gone out and said, oh, I've got a house now, I can use the equity I've got in my house to buy a rental property, and that can be my retirement savings. I understand why people have done that. The tax system's actually encouraged them to do that. But that's not sustainable. If every person who owns a house now buys another one, the next generation of homeowners won't exist. So we have to do things differently.
There you go. And that is the end of the conversation with Chippy. Thoughts?
So first of all, that's perfect. What he said there was perfect. I want to dovetail this into something that National has been pushing out lately, is that Labor need to announce their policy right fucking now on National's timetable. And if you wind back 4 or 5 months, I probably would have agreed with that. But now I'm going to switch tacks because it's obviously pissing National off that they haven't released any policy that they can criticize or steal. So, yeah, I'm okay with it. As much as I'm on a show where we would love to analyze Labor's policies into the next election, I am happy to, as you say, Pat, keep our powder dry until they're ready to release it.
I do actually think we've said that about multiple groups, actually, giving them, fair enough if you want to hold off. That's okay.
Talk to your membership. Get it past your party so everybody's pulling in the same direction. Hell, talk to your other left bloc parties and make sure that major policy pieces are broadly speaking aligned is a great tactic. And also just do it out of spite, because it seems like National is really annoying them because they don't have any policies left. They've done all of it.
Marzipan Rock says we need a higher tax rate introduced for over 200k or whatever. We had a much larger top tax rate in the 50s, etc., and funded schools, hospital, roads, etc., with no issue, and people were happy to pay. Yeah, maybe people, I mean, not to be flippant, but maybe just people are a lot more selfish now than they were. It's in the ballot. Says it's also unclear on whether getting sectioned under the Mental Health Act, like Jamie Lee Ross, would get you struck off the roll for voting. The law is currently at 3 years, but could this be 1 day? All right. And then Mr. Alex has a couple of messages in there. After going through the statements from my Ministry of Regulation and Department of Internal Affairs on why loot boxes in video games were excluded from the online casino gambling bill, bad move, then says, wanted to add my previous super chat. In my opinion, we had a serious departmental failure from the Ministry of Regulation, as they do not see loot boxes as addictive in video games. There we go. All right. I think that's pretty much us, guys. We're going to keep trucking and say goodnight and say goodbye. And we'll be back again. Lining up a few guests. Luckily, this always happens, doesn't it, when I tease something? I won't. I'll tell you, Chewy, afterwards.
Don't ruin it.
I won't ruin it. I'll keep my powder dry, as Chewy says all the time. Isn't that what you say all the time? Keep your powder dry?
No, it's you that says that all the time.
Oh, do I say that? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep our powder dry. All right, team. Thank you for being with us tonight. Sorry for the, I guess it was my turn to do the foo-foo. This is really important. And we need to keep it at the forefront of our minds to get ready for another fight. Because, I don't want to sound like some kind of, flippant sort of taking the piss. I'm not, but, democracy is worth fighting for, and we are literally going to be in a battle for it if we let these guys do what they want to do. All right, that's us. Don't know how I feel about this one, Chewy. How do you feel about that chat? Is that a little bit on the nose, that one? Don't know how I feel about that one, to be perfectly honest. All right, team. Thanks for being with us tonight. I've got nothing else to add, really, Chewy. Anything you want to throw out there to finish the show?
No. We'll see what brand new horrors greet us tomorrow.
All right, guys. Be safe, be well. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo.
Cheers, man.